Trove's combat and how you build classes can be broken up into 3 categories. Speed farming, where you're trying to complete dungeons as fast as possible, which means you need to have a class that has a good base movement speed and you will be sacrificing damage for more speed. Delves, which is a combination of damage and health. In most cases, you need to be really tanky to be able to survive the long, drawn-out gauntlet. And Leviathans are all about damage. You don't need to survive if you can kill it before it kills you. The efficiency of a class can basically be broken down into these 3 categories. Some will be stronger than others in one area and weaker in another. Another video of mine that I would recommend is the classes cheat sheet. It's basically a visual graph that kind of shows where each character fits in the spectrum. At the end of it all, I would always recommend that you play the class that you enjoy, rather than picking something specifically because it's efficient. So assuming you've picked out your main, let's get started with the more detailed tutorial. The Tomb Raiser is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to survivability. It's always been one of the best characters for survivability because it's got like some damage reduction skills and such, but it's not really the best in terms of speed farming because of the long amount of time that it takes to have optimal damage. Because basically as you summon your minions, you gotta end up getting their purple health bar in order to end up having them deal optimal damage. That's why this character is more attuned to Delves or Leviathans. Obviously there's a couple different options for your subclass ability, but namely the Lunar Lancer, maybe Mounted Cavalry, the Knight subclass, just because of the extra flask capacity, gives you a lot more survivability. You're going to be spamming your pots a lot. I don't know. It's not that big a deal which one you end up taking, because again, the Tomb Raiser is going to have huge survivability regardless. For your gear stat priority, you're going to be focusing on crit damage and movement speed because you don't need attack speed at all on this class. The movement speed will make the character handle speed farming at a relative pace, but it's not something super impressive because there's no abilities that boost movement speed. As for the Crystal Ring effect, Banshee Blast makes it so that basic attacks have a chance to summon baby banshees, which is okay. Ghost More reduces the energy drain from Ghost Form, which gives you like 90% damage reduction. You don't need it as much as you would back in the day just because of the skill tree, as we'll talk about later with the Life Leech ability. Skell Biggle, for my money, is going to be your best option because using Bone Tirage has a chance to summon a larger skeleton. When this large skeleton dies, it will spawn Skelittles. So that is a way that you can end up ultimately getting your minions to all have purple health bars very, very quickly. But on top of that, it's just the skeleton or the Skell Biggle does a lot more damage. Excuse me if I stumble over my words, I have a massive migraine. The best banner in slot is obviously just going to end up being any of the Leviathan torches. For my money, I always go for the Saber Skull because it gives light, magic damage, and movement speed is always important to me. Fun fact, if you end up crafting the wrong permanent torch, you can always just loot collect it. You'll get the permatorch back, but none of the resources that were required for crafting it up. For your ally, you actually have a couple different options with Tomb Raiser. Orchin, which will give you the magic damage boost, but it'll also give you a movement speed boost when a nearby enemy dies. Orchin is located over here in the hub in the Paragon section and is going to be crafted for various Paragon resources. The Mini Water Mana Beast is going to give you just heaps and heaps of damage though. And over here in the hub, down in the basement, is going to end up being the Mystic Arts. And this is where you'll end up crafting the Water Mana Beast. Coming up here to the Astrolabe, this is the skill tree. Your tree is going to be slightly different from mine, but one of the mandatory abilities, in my opinion, is going to be the Life Leech node. This makes almost every character invincible, Tomb Raiser even more so. Movement speed nodes, as I mentioned for me, is extremely important. The light nodes and the damage nodes, of course, speccing your character towards magic damage, whereas my skill tree is towards physical damage. For your flask, pretty much all of these options are going to be your best bet. I always just use Death-Defying because I'm really lazy. Back in the day, Vial of Unleashed Power used to be the absolute best for Tomb Raiser, but that was back when Shadow Towers were a thing. So Honestly, you can kind of just pick whichever one you want. Conjurer's Crucible is a good one for long-term farming because you'll get your flask back as you trigger Magic Find. And the emblems are going to vary. Unfortunately, at this point in the game, you pretty much always have to have Arcane Emblem. It's just a must because enemies are just always going to be way too powerful. I mean, you can get rid of it in some regard, but usually if you're just focusing on endgame stuff, no. I like using Trailblazing, again, because of movement speed, but you do have a couple other options. You could end up using Unyielding Emblem if you really need survivability, but you shouldn't need much of it on the Tomb Raiser. And then Sure Strike Emblem can be really good to get that extra 20% crit hit that you might be missing early on in the game. The mid-game stats you want to focus on is going to be anywhere between 50 and 80,000 magic damage. Your crit hit you want to have at 50 to 60%, trying your best to get that to 100% as soon as possible, and crit damage anywhere around like 800%. You pretty much have all of those like stats and just slowly build them up. You want to try and have a nice balance between crit damage and your magic damage. And then otherwise the crit hit, you pretty much, again, just always want to have that at 100%. Before we end up getting into the gems, the two things that I gotta mention is if you're sitting there wondering, well, how can I end up increasing my PR? Get your class to level 30 first, because it'll end up allowing you to equip all of your gems, and that gives you the hugest, like the biggest power boost. And then also this guide is not focusing on coefficiency. I'm trying to make this video as digestible to you guys and gals as possible. And I will have a coefficiency guide later on, but you gotta understand that I swap my gems very regularly. And in order to have a class be the most coefficient possible, you kind of have to set up the gems specifically for that class because each class is different in the base stats that they have. So for your empowered colored gems, you're gonna be going for 2 boost magic damage, 1 boost crit damage, no boost crit hit. And then for your lesser colored gems, it's going to be what I always refer to as a 3x3. You don't have to follow this to the letter. It's just an easy way to remember, where 3 of your colored lesser gems will be the exact same: 2 boost magic, 1 boost crit damage, no boost crit hit. And then the other 3 will end up being 2 boost crit damage, 1 boost magic damage, no boost crit hit. Once you get to 100% crit hit, you can just swap crit hit off of your gems and instead put max health, but it's not really that important. The boost on your cosmic gems, whether it be lesser or empowered, is going to be all the same across the board, which is all boosts into light, and then no boosts into crit damage and magic damage. As for the empowered gem abilities, you definitely want to end up getting the Beckon Banshee. It makes it so that your number 1 ability will summon a Banshee that will heal your minions, because your minions are just always going to slowly die over time. A couple other options is Pyro Disc for speed farming, Cubic Curtain if you need the survivability, but I don't know. The last gem doesn't really matter too much. You can kind of just pick whatever you want. And for the cosmic gem, that can be Vampirium if you want movement speed, because you don't really need the life steal out of it. But in most cases, you would go for Berserk Battler because it's going to boost up your light as you fight, which makes you deal heaps and heaps more damage. Now, at the end of these videos, I always like just kind of having a one-to-one talk with you guys, let you guys know what's going on with me personally and stuff. So there's lots of real life things that are happening that I'll hopefully be able to talk soon. I think some of you can guess. But the other thing is that I know my upload schedule has been very sporadic lately. That's just got to do with the fact that I got early access to Core Keeper 1.0 and Star Wars Outlaws. I'm not allowed to talk about any of the gameplay or experiences that I've had with you guys until the embargo date, which I think is the 26th or 27th. I'll have to double check. But the point being is I've been stockpiling recording both of those so that I can have videos ready to go on the dates. I know that as far as my channel is concerned, I should be prioritizing the Trove stuff. But frankly speaking, I've just been, I really like the fact that I got access to these games early because it's allowed me to kind of take my time with it. It's just kind of been impacting and impeding my Trove stuff. And apologies for that. I know I should be doing more Trove stuff. I didn't even notice that I missed last week's Luxian video, because again, I was busy sorting out and going through all of the politics of setting that up and getting access to these games. Anyways, with all of that said, I'm just trying to say that I'm busy lately. I'm not trying to be like, oh, it's too much work or anything. I mean, today sucks. I got a mega migraine and it just won't go away. But yeah, you can smash like, sub for more, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. You guys know how the YouTube stuff goes. Share this on LimeWire, MySpace, Facebook, all of the sites that are pretty much dead. Is Twitter dead yet? Has it died? I think it has.